From becoming the first person ever medically evacuated after falling into a fire,
I was blown on the fire and the smoke went right in my face, and I inhaled it. And I passed out.
to being arrested for running a Ponzi scheme and possessing illegal material.
Skupin of White Lake is charged with child pornography and running a Ponzi scheme. Investigators say they found the child porn on his computer while they were digging for evidence in the alleged Ponzi scam.
This is the shocking story of how Michael Skupin went from beloved fan favorite to convicted criminal in one of reality TV's most disturbing falls from grace. Michael David Skupin's childhood started with tragedy when his father died of cancer while Michael was only 4 years old. This early loss shaped who he would become, though not in any positive way. His mother, Mary Louise, eventually remarried a man named Clarence Landry when Michael was 10 years old. The young boy took his stepfather's last name and became Michael Landry, even though Clarence never officially adopted him. This identity confusion would follow him throughout his life, creating problems that revealed deeper issues with how Michael viewed rules and authority. But the identity issues that started with his stepfather's name would come back to haunt him. In 1984, Michael graduated with a business degree. He started working as a copier salesman for 3M, but his ambitions were bigger than selling office equipment. In 1992, he teamed up with his childhood friend Greg Swan to found Rhinosoft Interactive, a software company in Wisconsin. But Michael's business dealings showed the same pattern of pushing boundaries. In 2000, his company became involved in a controversy when CD-ROMs containing Bible software started appearing in boxes of General Mills cereal. The cereal company claimed they had no idea that Bible discs were being included and apologized, saying it went against their policy of not promoting any specific religious beliefs. Michael's partner insisted that General Mills knew all along, but the incident revealed how Michael operated. He would push the envelope, cross lines, and then act surprised when people objected. Despite these warning signs, Michael had successfully built a public image as a devout Christian. He founded Michael Skupin Ministries, which claimed to help people fight addiction. And then Survivor called, giving Michael the platform that would make him famous and eventually lead to his complete destruction. In 2000, the reality TV landscape was exploding. The first season of Survivor had become a cultural phenomenon, and CBS was ready to capitalize on its success with Survivor: The Australian Outback. Michael Skupin, now 38 years old, was selected as one of 16 castaways competing for $1 million and the title of sole survivor.
When I saw those figs, it was a big rush, and 2 or 3 people came over and helped pick the figs, and we brought them back, and I bit into one right off the tree.
From the moment the game began, Michael positioned himself as the leader of his tribe, Kucha. At first, he tried to downplay this role, probably sensing that being seen as bossy might make him a target. But Michael couldn't help himself. His ego demanded that everyone recognize him as the alpha male of the group. Michael embraced being the tribe's main provider. He caught fish for everyone and made sure they all knew about his contributions. But his behavior went far beyond normal Survivor gameplay. Michael became obsessed with proving his dominance over nature itself.
When other people catch a fish, they just catch a fish. But when Mike catches it, there are trumpets that blare and angels that sing. And, you know, everybody's got to sit down and gather around him and hold his hands and watch him carve it out.
The incident that made Michael truly infamous happened when he decided to hunt wild game. Michael hunted down and killed a wild pig for the tribe. But it wasn't the act of killing for food that disturbed viewers. It was what Michael did afterward. He smeared the pig's blood all over his face like war paint and celebrated his kill with an intensity that made even his tribe mates uncomfortable.
Oh, this is like a murder scene.
When I butcher a deer, I use a hatchet and a knife.
CBS had to put a parental advisory warning on the screen before showing the pig hunting scene. Michael had become the first Survivor contestant ever to force the network to warn viewers about graphic content. He seemed proud of this distinction, viewing it as proof of his hardcore survival skills, rather than a sign that his behavior was extreme and concerning. Michael's tribe mates had mixed feelings about him. On one hand, he was providing food and shelter. On the other hand, his intensity and need for control made him difficult to live with. He had this strange hitching laugh that sounded forced and uncomfortable. He would thank God publicly for anointing him as the tribe's leader, showing a level of self-importance that rubbed people the wrong way.
I've been thinking a lot about the fact that at tribal council, it came out that I was the leader, and I don't really want to be seen as the leader. So if I can get something, I'll lay real low on the other leadership areas.
But Michael believed he was heading toward victory. Kucha had a 6-5 advantage over the rival Ogakor tribe, and the merge was approaching. Michael and his allies were planning to pick off the Ogakor members one by one. Everything was going according to Michael's plan. And then, on day 17, everything changed in the most dramatic way possible. It was just another morning at the Kucha camp. Michael was tending to the fire, doing the same task he'd done dozens of times before. The wind suddenly changed direction, blowing thick smoke directly into his face. Michael inhaled a huge cloud of smoke and passed out, falling directly into the flames.
Oh my God!
He's burnt pretty bad, sir.
The scream that followed was one of the most horrifying sounds in Survivor history. Michael's tridemates looked over to see him writhing in agony, his hands already severely burned. He ran frantically into the cold river water, trying to ease the unbearable pain. Between screams, Michael tried to explain what had happened. His hat had protected his face from the worst of the burns, but his hands and arms were destroyed. The skin was already blistering and peeling away. 30% of his hands had third-degree burns. His hands swelled to 4 times their normal size, becoming massive, useless blobs of damaged tissue.
Don't get out in the deep in case you pass out.
Yeah, I'm nervous it's gonna go.
It keeps intense.
I know, Mike.
Don't get out in the deep, Mike. Don't get out.
I'm on my
The Survivor medical team rushed in and immediately called for an evacuation helicopter. There was no question about whether Michael could continue playing. His injuries were so severe that he needed to be airlifted to a specialized burn center immediately. As Michael lay on the stretcher, tears streaming down his face, he apologized to the production crew. He genuinely believed he had ruined the show. He kept saying he was sorry, thinking that his accident had wrecked everything. Even in his moment of greatest pain, Michael's ego was at work. He couldn't imagine that the show would go on without him. His tribe mates gathered around as the medical team prepared to load him onto the helicopter. Michael looked at them and said his final words as a Survivor contestant, telling them he was looking at some brave, beautiful people who he had grown to love so much. It was an emotional moment that seemed genuine and heartfelt. The helicopter lifted off, carrying Michael away from the game he'd worked so hard to dominate. He'd become the first person in Survivor history to be medically evacuated. His place in reality TV history was secured, but not in the way he'd imagined.
Right here, Mike.
Hang in there, buddy.
Stay strong.
You guys do what's right. You guys know what to do.
Okay.
You guys know what to do. You know exactly what to do.
How many fish do you want?
But what happened during Michael's recovery revealed a disturbing pattern of deception. Michael was taken to a hospital in Cairns, about an hour and 15 minutes from the Survivor camp. But his burns were so serious that doctors sent him to a specialized burn center in Brisbane, another 3.5 hours away. Even then, Michael was in denial about the severity of his situation. He kept asking when he could go back to the game, even as his hands continued to swell into grotesque shapes. Michael later claimed that through prayer and miracles, his hands healed without needing skin grafts. This story became central to his post-Survivor identity as a Christian motivational speaker. He turned his accident into a testimony about God's healing power. But Michael did something disturbing when he got home. He hid his injuries from his family. When his wife and 3 children saw his red, damaged skin, Michael told them it was just sunburn. He let them believe this lie for months, until the episode finally aired on television and they saw the truth for themselves. When asked why he'd lied to his family, Michael claimed he wanted them to experience the full story without knowing the outcome first. But this explanation revealed something darker about Michael's character. He was willing to deceive the people closest to him, to manipulate their emotions for what he saw as a better dramatic effect. The fire accident made Michael Skupin a household name. Over 31 million people watched the episode where he was evacuated, one of the highest rated episodes in Survivor history. Michael had achieved the fame he'd always craved, and he was determined to capitalize on it. Michael reinvented himself as a Christian motivational speaker, but the cracks in his character were already showing. After his recovery, Michael quit his software business and dedicated himself full-time to speaking at churches, youth groups, and Christian events across the country and around the world. He was getting calls from major organizations, including Acquire the Fire, a popular evangelical youth conference. In 2004, Michael published an autobiography called Fireproof. The title was a reference to his accident, but also to his supposed spiritual transformation. The book portrayed Michael as someone who'd been tested by fire, both literally and spiritually, and emerged stronger and more faithful.
A lot of the Bible. I got all the best Christian books, The Purpose-Driven Life and Prayer of Jabez, and you can't get out of the water until you can't walk on water until you jump out of the boat, and all those different books.
Michael's speaking career was thriving. He told audiences about his survivor experience, his horrific accident, and his miraculous healing. He positioned himself as living proof of God's power and grace. Parents trusted him to speak to their children about faith, perseverance, and overcoming adversity. But while Michael was building his reputation as a man of God, the warning signs were becoming impossible to ignore. In 2001, Michael appeared on Hollywood Squares as a panelist during Survivor Week, enjoying his 15 minutes of fame. But behind the scenes, his personal life was falling apart. According to Michigan State records, Michael's driver's license had been suspended approximately 20 times since 1999. Think about that for a moment. 20 license suspensions. This was a pattern of someone who repeatedly broke the law, faced consequences, and then immediately went back to doing the same thing. Michael was showing everyone exactly who he was, but people were too blinded by his survivor fame to see it. Michael owed money all over Michigan. He'd skipped out on a $7,000 bill from a local golf course and was sued in court. He lost, but there's no evidence he ever paid what he owed. For someone who presented himself as a moral Christian leader, Michael seemed to have no problem stealing services and refusing to honor his debts. But Michael kept up his public image as a devoted family man and man of faith. He talked about his wife and 3 children.
He said, I've been the chief of surgery here for 35 years in the #1 burn center in Australia, and I've never seen a burn heal like that.
The truth was about to become much harder to ignore when Survivor offered Michael a second chance. In 2012, Survivor gave Michael the opportunity that many fans thought he deserved. The show was doing its 25th season, titled Survivor Philippines, and the theme was giving 3 previously medically evacuated players a second chance at the $1 million prize. Michael returned to Survivor alongside Jonathan Penner and Russell Swan, 2 other players who'd been forced out of the game due to medical emergencies.
They've asked me back about a dozen times, and each time I got this close, and I always said yes. I mean, it was only one time I turned down when my mom was sick in the hospital, and so when I got the call this time, I thought, okay, sure. And I'm thinking I'm going to get the call saying we've gone in another direction. And
Michael was placed on the Tandang tribe, and right away he recognized one of his tribe mates. Lisa Whelchel had been a child star on the hit TV series The Facts of Life. Michael kept this information to himself initially, showing that he'd learned at least some strategic thinking over the years. From the start, Michael's gameplay was strong. He quickly formed an alliance with other Tandang members, including R.C. Saint-Amour, Pete Yurkowski, and R.B. Maria Gomez. The Tandang tribe dominated the early challenges, never losing a single tribal immunity competition before the merge. Michael and his alliance sailed into the merge with their numbers intact.
Bloody from here to here, his chest. Everybody's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "That's my boy."
But this is where Michael's social game began to fall apart in spectacular fashion. After the merge, Michael teamed up with Lisa Welchel and eventually formed a new alliance with Denise Stapley and Malcolm Freeberg. This move showed that Michael had no real loyalty to anyone except Lisa. He was willing to flip on his original allies whenever it suited him. The jury was watching all of this, and they weren't impressed. Michael seemed to think he was playing a brilliant strategic game, but really he was just bouncing from alliance to alliance without any clear plan or loyalty.
Core of what this game is about. It's about outwit, outplay, outlast. And I believe that if you look at those three principles, there's nobody sitting up here that did that remotely even close to what I did in this game.
But I don't believe that one of the core values of the game is out-disrespect.
I don't believe it is either.
Thank you.
She was trying to convince everyone that they should take her to the end because nobody would vote for her. It was obvious R.B. Maria thought Michael was stupid and easy to manipulate. Michael won immunity at the Final Four, and he voted out Malcolm alongside Lisa and Denise. Michael had made it to the final tribal council. After 12 years of waiting for another shot at Survivor, he was going to face the jury and plead his case for the $1 million. But the jury destroyed him.
Suffering, they brought the suffering back. For those viewers that say they don't suffer as much, seems like they feed them now. They never complain about food. If suffering equals viewership, the viewers are going to be very pleased because
Michael finished as the runner-up, earning second place and $50,000. Many Survivor fans thought he'd proven himself as a solid player who'd just gotten unlucky with the jury. But people who were paying attention saw something different. They saw a man who thought he was in control but was actually being manipulated the entire time. Michael's Survivor story was over. He'd gotten his second chance and fallen short. It was time to return to regular life and figure out what came next. That's when everything started to unravel in the most disturbing way possible. Rob Wolchek, an investigative reporter for Fox 2 Detroit, inducted Michael Skupin into his Hall of Shame. Wolchek had been investigating Michael's financial business called Pay It Forward, and what he discovered was deeply disturbing. Wolchek had obtained audio recordings that Michael had made to promote his business.
How can it be legal? What's the product? The product's just money.
What would you like to know?
Well, tell me about it. It's an investment deal?
Nope.
Everything about Michael's pitch screamed Ponzi scheme. The business model was based entirely on recruiting new investors to pay off earlier investors. There was no actual product or service generating revenue. The promotional materials on Michael's website showed a chart with investors arranged in lines forming a pyramid structure. It was a pyramid scheme, being marketed under the guise of an internet cycler, whatever that meant. Wolchek had tried for months to interview Michael about his business, but Michael kept dodging him. Finally, Wolchek caught up with Michael outside a courthouse and confronted him with questions about Pay It Forward.
Do your research.
But I got a feeling he's not going to be able to outwit. The Attorney General assures us we are in complete compliance. Which Attorney General said
Do
this?
your research.
Outplay? Do you have anything else you want to say?
Michael's responses were absolutely incredible to watch. When Wolchek asked what his business was, Michael claimed it was an internet cycler run by hundreds of reputable people all over the internet. When Wolchek asked Michael to name even one reputable person running this type of business, Michael couldn't do it. He just said there were hundreds of them, but he didn't know who any of the business owners were.
Basically, when you put $300 in, or $1,000, or $5,000 in, and when 24 more people get in on your board, it puts you in the money.
The authorities were paying attention now, and they were building a case that would destroy whatever remained of Michael's reputation. On February 5, 2016, police arrested Michael Skupin. He was charged with 5 counts of larceny by conversion and 1 count of racketeering related to his pay-it-forward scheme. After years of investigations and complaints, the authorities finally had enough evidence to move forward with prosecution. Michael's bond was set at $350,000, an enormous amount that reflected how seriously the court took these charges. Michael had allegedly stolen thousands of dollars from investors who'd trusted him. The scale of the fraud was significant enough that racketeering charges were appropriate. But then, the investigation took a dark and disturbing turn that shocked everyone. While police were examining Michael's computer as part of the Ponzi scheme investigation, they discovered something horrifying. The computer contained images and videos of children that were illegal to possess. 6 counts of possession were added to Michael's charges, completely unrelated to the financial crimes, but discovered during the same search.
Witnesses took the stand in a hearing to determine if a former survivor contestant should stand trial in Oakland County. Michael Skupin of White Lake is charged with child pornography and running a Ponzi scheme. Investigators say they found the child porn on his computer while they were digging for evidence.
Michael was facing charges for some of the most serious and disgusting crimes anyone can commit. His carefully constructed image as a Christian family man and motivational speaker was completely shattered. Michael maintained that he was innocent. He claimed hundreds of people had access to his computer, and it was impossible to know who was responsible for the illegal material. During his trial, according to court testimony, Michael even tried to blame his 17-year-old stepson. The prosecutor called this attempt to shift responsibility onto a teenager appalling. In November 2016, Michael was found guilty of 4 out of 6 counts related to the illegal material on his computer.
He's a threat because the only person that matters to him is him, and that ego gets in the way of him viewing other people, children, his stepson, the victims of his financial crimes, as like actual human beings.
Michael was sentenced to 1 to 4 years in prison for the material found on his computer, and 4 years of probation plus $31,800 in restitution for the larceny charge. The judge clearly viewed Michael as a danger and a criminal who'd betrayed every value he'd claimed to hold dear. In a statement to People magazine, Michael tried to maintain his innocence. He said he was sorry if he'd done anything wrong with his business, claiming he really thought he was helping people. Michael served his time at a Michigan prison. Every day behind bars must have been a reminder of how far he'd fallen. The man who'd once been carried out of the Australian outback by helicopter as a hero was now a convicted criminal, registered as a sex offender for the rest of his life. On December 19, 2017, after serving about a year in prison, Michael was released on parole. His parole formally ended on January 3, 2021. He was free, but his reputation was destroyed forever. Today, Michael Skupin lives in obscurity, a cautionary tale about ego, greed, and the consequences of believing rules don't apply to you. In the end, Michael Skupin got exactly what he deserved, and it wasn't the glory he'd always craved. Michael will always be remembered as the first person medically evacuated from Survivor, but now that memory comes with the knowledge of who he really was all along. The hero narrative has been replaced with the truth. The man who fell into the fire ultimately burned down his entire life through his own choices and actions. The only tragedy is that it took so long for people to see Michael for who he really was, and by then, many people had already been hurt by trusting him. But at least justice was finally served, and Michael's true legacy has been permanently recorded in court documents and prison records for all time.